Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Fabrari, and I'm the Director of School Counseling Services here at Westmore Central High School. Each year, I do a presentation in the evening for our junior students and families about the importance of junior year and the college search and admissions process. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we're unable to host that event here in the building this year. So I thought it best to pre-record this presentation, share it with you. We watch it at your own leisure. And if you have any questions or comments after you view this, please feel free to contact me or to reach out to your school counselor. The agenda for this meeting is simple. We're going to quickly review the calendar from here until the submission of college applications next fall. We will look at standardized testing in the junior year, and we will talk and examine the college search and admissions processes. So the number one thing that I can tell you to do moving forward from this point to the end of this year is to keep your grades up. I'll show you later in the presentation that this is the number one thing colleges look for when they evaluate your candidacy for admissions. Junior year is the final full year of academic work that you are able to complete and show colleges before you apply to school. So incredibly important to do well this year. We are currently conducting our junior conferences in the guidance office this month and next month. If you've yet to schedule that conference, please contact your counselor as soon as possible. Once we get back from winter break, January through June, will be an opportunity for a lot of students who take SAT and ACT tests, and we'll talk about those in a bit. May and June for our AP and IB students, you'll be taking some tests, but for all students, it is a time to ask your teachers from this year for recommendations for your college applications. Over the course of the summer, you will begin the application itself. You will start writing your essay, all in an effort so that when November 1st, 2021 arrives, when we are all back in this building full time, hopefully, you will be able to submit your applications to the schools that you'd like to apply to. As I mentioned, we are conducting our junior conferences right now. Again, if you haven't scheduled that yet, please do so as soon as possible. Hit pause, call, send an email right now. In that conference, you're going to review your transcript with your counselor. You will look at what the colleges will see when we send the transcripts to their offices. And you will learn what colleges are looking at when they're evaluating you and what stands out on your transcript in a positive light. You'll come up with your own personal standardized testing timeline, identifying which tests to take and when to take them. The counselor will introduce you to Naviance and how that will augment your college search. And we'll talk about college visitations and share some financial aid resources with you as well in those meetings. Yeah, there are a lot of tests in our junior year. There's no getting around that. We've already taken the PSAT in October, and that will be those results will be available to you mid-December. But really, the two big tests that we talk about in junior and senior year are the SAT and the ACT. And when we talk about those, the question that we always get in the counseling office is, which test should I take, the SAT or the ACT? And that's where these PSAT results and practice ACT results from last year come in handy. We will look at those 2 points of data and we will consult a concordance chart. And the concordance chart looks like this. An ACT, the maximum ACT score a student can get is a 36, and the maximum SAT score is a 1600. So the scales are different. So we need to figure out how these correlate. And what this shows us is that an 18 on an ACT is equal to a 950 on an SAT. So what's going to happen is this. When those PSAT results come in, we're going to get a number. And if that PSAT number is 1140, what we want to do is we want to look at last year's pre-ACT result. And if last year's pre-ACT result is a 20, well, we know that we are performing better on the SAT. And so we're going to focus all of our attention, all of our efforts on preparing for the SAT. We're going to ignore the ACT altogether. Or we get a number back from the PSAT results and it's at 1180. But our practice ACT result is at a 28. Well, that's a big difference. We're going to then focus our efforts on the ACT and we're going to ignore the SAT. What you need to know is that all colleges accept both and weigh them both equally. One is not viewed more favorably than the other. I think it's important for me to note at this point, moving forward, we're going to work under the assumption that college admissions offices will want SAT and ACT results next fall. That was not the case this fall for the class of 2021. Our current seniors, last year's juniors, were unable to take tests in March, April, May, June, July because of the pandemic. And consequently, nearly every college in the country developed a test optional policy for students who were not able to take a test. We're going to work under the assumption that we're going to be able to do tests moving forward and that the colleges will want those next fall. So that you're aware, West Morris Central hosted an SAT in August, hosted an SAT and ACT in September, and hosted an SAT and ACT in October. In the district between Mendham and Central, we have tests scheduled throughout the spring that we're going to host. And I know at Central, as long as we are hosting instruction in the building during the school day, our goal then would also to be able to host an SAT or an ACT in the spring when the time comes. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we're able to do that. But going back to this concordance chart, again, so if you see a large difference like we do here or a large difference like we do here, it makes it easy to determine which test. But many students will come back, though, and you'll find that you get about a 30 on the pre-ACT and a 1400 on the PSAT. It's about the same. The vast majority of students, you're going to see a correlation between the two scores that indicates, you're going to do well on either test. In that instance, it's really a comfort level. Look at practice SAT and ACT tests. Look at the styles of questions and determine which is more comfortable for you and take that test moving forward. Then there are some who just like to, I want to take a full SAT, a full ACT, and go from there. And you can certainly do that as well. But this concordance chart can help us, identify which test we may perform better on. All right, so the next question, when should I take it? Again, like I just mentioned, there's going to be tests in March, May, and June, most likely August as well, October, November, December moving forward. And then ACT is offered February, April, June, July, September, October, December. So between Central and Mendham, we typically have all of those administrations covered. So when to take it, the rule of thumb is this, is if you completed Algebra 2, you go ahead and take the test. So if you completed Algebra 2 sophomore year, you are good to go. You've covered the math that's going to be on the assessment. Go ahead and sign up for the test. If you're currently in Algebra 2 right now in your junior year, you want to get as much Algebra 2 under your belt as possible. So wait until the springtime or the summer to take the SAT or ACT. But for those of you that, when you do decide to register early. Don't wait. Reserve your spot as soon as you can. Now, for many, standardized testing invokes these type of symptoms and a great deal of anxiety. This anxiety cycle that we talk about where we view the test as a threat, and as a result, our anxiety is high. And because the anxiety is high, we lower our performance on the test. And because we lowered the performance on that test, now we feel like, no matter what test we take, we're going to do poorly on. And it's just a vicious cycle. And the best way to beat that, folks, is just to be prepared. The more prepared you are for anything, the better off you're going to be. So test prep is key. The type of test prep you do, though, is up to each individual. Khan Academy, and this is hyperlinked here. So when you get a copy of this presentation in a PDF format, you can just click on that. It'll take you right to Khan Academy. Khan Academy and College Board, which owns the SAT, have an agreement. And so you can do online test prep through Khan Academy for the SAT. ACT has their own individual academy as well. So if you're a student who can do individualized, on your own prep, great, more power to you, go ahead. There are some students that need the structure of a course, that need that regimented, weekly or bi-weekly program. If that's the case, you should look into or consider some type of test prep course. That is not a typo. Some of those courses can be pretty expensive, so just beware. But again, whatever it is, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So you've got to do the work, and you've got to take the time to prep for this test. Now, again, if tests just really throw you into anxiety and you just can't figure a way out of this anxiety cycle, please know that there are schools that are test optional. And this right here, fairtest.org, this is hyperlinked for you to view, take you right to this site. These are all the schools in the country that have some form of test optional policy. Now, like I said earlier, nearly every school in the country developed some form of test optional policy for this admission cycle. We don't know if that's going to continue to hold for the next admission cycle. So look at this site and be able to identify schools that are test optional. And no matter what, always visit the college's website to find out their specific policy about standardized testing. All right, so let's talk college. As I said earlier, I mentioned the importance of grades in your junior year. The National Association of College Admissions Counselors, puts out a survey each year to college and university offices throughout the country. And the respondents tell us what they consider the most important factor in the college admissions process. And this number one answer has been the same for as long as I've been reviewing it, which is 15 years, and I'm sure a lot longer than that. And that is grades in your courses. There is no single greater factor in the admissions process than your grades. They do look at strength of curriculum, meaning are you challenging yourself? And challenging yourself to whatever level you're able to handle. That could be advanced classes, that could be honors classes, that could be AP, IB. Everyone's different, but are you challenging yourself? Coming in at fourth, you can see 45% test scores, and again, that's going to be subject to this pandemic here. Essay, it has some weight to it as well, so we're going to talk about that in a bit. Demonstrated interest is an interesting thing. This has kind of been gaining some momentum over the past few years. Colleges want to see that you are genuinely interested in attending their school, and so you have to demonstrate interest. And how do you do that? You go for a college visit. You schedule an interview with an admissions representative. You call their offices. You demonstrate that you're interested. They don't want applicants that just send in an application and they never hear from again. So they want to see that you are in fact interested in attending their school. How does the admissions process work? So, it's different from office to office. And what I've done here, these are videos from 3 different colleges and universities throughout the country, all with an quote unquote inside look into the admissions office. So I'm not going to play these all for you now, but I do recommend that you click on these when you have the opportunity. I am just going to play one for you that I think is will demonstrate something for you.
All right, we're on page 61. She's got 5s in 4 APs. We divide our applicant pool of circa 8,000 candidates into 30 plus geographic regions, and we pair 2 readers to each region
with Caitlin on her being an inside the box kind of gal.
Inside the box.
Inside the box. How many would like to admit? Waitlist. Prior to the conversations we have here as a committee, the group has been significantly reduced to a really, really accomplished group.
He's a top tester.
He's got all A's.
4 varsity sports.
The first chair trumpet in the orchestra.
You ready for this? 6.4 GPA and a 4 scale.
Did he get all those 5s without AP courses?
Yep.
Oof. But we can't take them all, and so about 1,000 candidates are brought to be heard by the whole committee.
The process of making those decisions is agonizing.
I'm questioning the edge here, however, in all her excellence. How many would like to admit? Okay, goes to the wait list.
We're fully aware of the fact that the process is, I don't want to say flawed, but is making minute distinctions among extraordinarily talented kids. There are times, honestly, where I'm not sure why I put my hand up or failed to put my hand up. I'm kind of going with my gut here.
The night before her AP chemistry exam, she learned her father had an affair with a 23-year-old prostitute.
How many would like to admit?
One parent is a business exec VP with a master's, both went to Harvard. He's got 3 SIBs at Harvard in classes 09, 11, and 15.
His family financial situation took a huge hit, and they lost their family store and all other assets.
When a student is particularly poor and are achieving an exceptionally high level, that will be a plus factor for that student.
Dad's alcoholism consuming the family. This is a quote from one of his essays. The alcohol-consuming poor Muslim family down the street with whom no sane member of society would want to interact.
How many would like to admit?
I am cognizant of some lives being changed, literally. On the other hand, yeah, I do feel badly. The months of February and March are simply no fun.
All right, so forgive the pop-ups that came up there. But one of the things that always stands out to me when I view that video, and that's one I've shown often, is how subjective the process can be, how humanistic it is, right? That there are real people on the other end reading those applications. So that becomes incredibly, incredibly important to remember when you're writing your essay, when you're emailing admissions offices, the best you can to make a connection with the person on the other side of that application will increase your chances for success of admission. But when you get a chance, look at those other 2, and they give you some other insights into how different admissions offices conduct the process. Just to give you an idea of how we're doing, typically each year, just under 80% of our students from West Morris go to a 4-year college or university. And somewhere around 17% wind up going to a 2-year school, most often the County College of Morris. So about 95%, right, continue their education in some post-secondary education setting. We look further. There we go. One of the things that we've really begun to emphasize over the past 5-6 years here, number of applications that we put out from each student. In 2018, 5.3 applications per student, 5.5 applications in 2019, and 5.1 last year. So typically about 5 applications per student we send out. And as a result, when we first started doing this, percentage of applications resulting in an acceptance, the bottom row there. When we first started looking at this, we saw this number of applications per student was around 7 or 8, and low 60s, high 50s was the percentage. And once we really started working with students about targeting schools and really being thoughtful in the number of applications they're producing, we've seen the percentage of acceptances go up. So what that shows you is 78% of the applications we sent out last year came back as an acceptance for the class of 2020. That's a pretty strong percentage. Just to give you an idea of how we're doing in the different types of schools, So the most competitive colleges, universities, right? These would be the Ivies, the Dukes, the NYUs, that level of school. Last year we sent out 365 applications, and 136 of them were accepted. The average weighted GPA of those applications was a 5.09. The average SAT, 1445, and average ACT, 31. I show this to you not to instill dread, but rather just to instill some type of reality, if you will, about the type of student that is accepted into these colleges and universities. It's very, very difficult at those level schools. We look at the highly competitive schools, and over to your left-hand side are some of the schools that would fall under this category. And you can see here that the average weighted GPA is a 4.66 from last year, and the average SAT was 1327, and the average ACT at 29. And then we look at that next tier of schools, which would be competitive. You can see the average GPA 3.88 and the average SAT 1173. So again, this should just give you some type of idea of where you may fall based on your current GPA and SAT and the types of schools that you could be successful at in applying. But again, just a point of reference. I think this is always interesting for people to see, and I like to share this as perhaps a jumping off point for students. These are the top 10 most applied to colleges over the past 3 years from West Morris. So you can kind of maybe use these schools as a place to start your college search. But one of the things I do like to highlight is this, that 80% of our students that applied to Rutgers over the past 3 years were accepted. Whereas nationally, of the applications submitted to Rutgers, only 57% were accepted. Look down here at Northeastern, right? One of those more competitive colleges and universities. 48% of our applicants from West Morris were accepted, whereas nationally they only accept 19% of the applicants. So nearly in every school, we are outperforming the national acceptance average. And for the first time since I've been putting this together, which is 6 or 7 years now, the College of New Jersey is not the second most attended four-year college or university from West Morris. Rutgers has always been number one and probably always will be. Virginia Tech snuck in there at number 2. The College of New Jersey coming in at number 3. But again, just to give you an idea of where students from West Morris have gone over the past 3 years. All right, so now it's time for you to begin your college search, and this can feel overwhelming, a Herculean task, if you will, but certainly one that everybody here is capable of doing and will do. And reminding you right now that your counselors are here. This is why they're here, to help you with this process. One of the tools that we're going to use is Naviance. And again, you'll get into some more detail with this in the college, in your junior conference. But I just want to give you a quick overview right now of some of the resources within this tool. So you will be able to conduct a college search. You will put in the types of schools that you want, whether it's a 4-year or 2-year school, where you'd like that school to be, a section of the country. How many students do you want to be on campus? Is there a sport that you're looking for? How much does a school cost? Could be a factor in your search process. A major will certainly be a factor if you're looking at that. So, Naviance really allows you to personalize your college search. You'll get an overview whenever you select a school, and it gives you some information. It gives you the idea of net price, and you'll see that this is a hyperlink here. It'll give you more about the cost of the school. There's sticker cost, right? And then there's actual cost of attendance, whether it's based on grants merit scholarships. So there's a lot to look at there. Graduation rate, when a lot of the parents who are viewing this, went to school, the colleges were producing a 4 or 5 year graduation rate. Now schools are showing what it is for a 6-year graduation rate. Ask them specifically what it is for a 4-year and 5-year rate. They have those stats. The colleges that are proud of them will probably post them online, and those that will want to hide them, you're going to have to pull it out of them. But when you ask, they have to share it with you. I'm going to show you scattergrams in a second and overlaps as well. So this is the feature that most people like. This is a scattergram for a particular school. And what this does is this shows us, just get this pointer ready here. This shows us the average accepted SAT, just about a 1300, and the average accepted GPA of students from Westmore Central that applied to this school and were accepted. These red X's are students that applied to this school and were denied admission. And this student presumably was denied admission because significantly lower, nearly 200 points lower than the average SAT they were taking. Green checks are students that applied and got into the school. And this little blue circle right here is representative of where you will be on that chart when you view it through your own account. So if you are in this area right here where that blue circle is, right, we would consider this a target area. This is a school that you're going to apply to, and we can reasonably expect that you're a competitive candidate and have a strong chance of getting in. If your blue person is out here, this is what we call the safety area. This is a place where you're going to apply to, and barring anything crazy, you're going to get accepted into that school. If you find yourself in this box here, right, in this area inside the box, this is what we call a reach school. You're short of the GPA, you're short on the SAT. It's going to be really difficult for you to get in. It's a reach for you to apply and get into that school. But maybe you're applying to a specific major and they don't have enough candidates for. Maybe you play an instrument that they need in a band. Maybe you wow them in an interview or an essay. But if you're in this area, it's going to be a reach. One final point about these scattergrams is, again, this shows you the average. So there are students who have below the average scores that will get in, and there are students that are above the average scores that get in. You should not add or delete a college from your list of potential schools to apply to based solely on the scattergram. This is just to give you an idea of how competitive you can expect to be when you submit that application. Overlaps, I think, is a very important feature of Naviance. What this shows is at Marist College, and this slide is dated, when you actually look at it, you'll see more up-to-date years. But what this shows from Marist College, from this time frame, from 2010 to 2016, students that applied there, 50 of them also applied to the College of New Jersey, and 48 of them also applied to the University of Scranton. So these schools are overlaps. They have something in common, probably location, probably same level of difficulty in getting in, probably the same size, but there's something in common that our students thought that, in applying to Marist, I should also apply to the College of New Jersey, University of Scranton, University of Delaware. This could be one way for you to expand upon your list of schools that you want to apply to. Let's say you do, in fact, like Marist. Well, you know what? For the past few years, students have also applied to TCNJ, Scranton, and Delaware. Look at those schools. They have something in common. They may have similar features that you find attractive in a college or university. Once you started to develop the list, you have to go ahead and get on the road and take some college visits. Obviously, right now, folks, it's every school is different, dependent upon the state. in terms of what type of visit they're hosting, or if they're hosting any type of visit. The best advice I can give you right now, given the situation that we're in, is plan early. Identify schools that you want to visit and book them as far out as you can book them. And get them on the calendar right away and get on their books right away in the admissions office. Spring break is a great time to go. President's Weekend, typically has been a big college tour weekend. You may find yourself in the springtime taking it, a Friday or a Monday, so that you can travel to some of these places and take the schools, and that's okay. Get out there, visit the colleges. The goal is to see colleges and get on college campuses while students are in session, so you can get an idea of campus life. But if you're unable to do that, at the very least, you would just want to see the campus, see some of the facilities, and if you're able to speak to professors, that's great too. So you can get an idea of classes. And if you're on campus when students are there and you're able to speak to them, do that as well. The other thing to consider is, counselors have developed relationships with students over the years. So if you have an interest in a school, a counselor may have a student who went there last year or 2 years ago, and we can connect you and get you guys in touch with each other so you can start to communicate about the school, and you can ask some questions from a student that's there that came from West Morris, so you can get a real idea. But that last bullet point, students take the lead. I really mean that. We want our students to book these trips, call the admissions offices, be self-advocates, obviously in concert with the parents, but it should be the students making the call and doing the work, booking these college visits. The college visit is very, very important. I'm going to try to show this video to you. I am having some connectivity issues right now, so I'm hopeful that you're able to see it. But if not, please certainly watch it on your own. But let's give this a shot.
I think that the college tour process can be very intimidating and overwhelming in a lot of ways, but what I find the most valuable about that process is that you're able to really get in touch with yourself about what you might want from your college experience.
There's so much to do and so much to see. Somebody taking you around this new place, and it's very awesome. But it's very important to stay engaged and listen to what is being said. Sometimes the good thing about the college is not in the beauty or what you see, but what has been kept and you cannot see from the outside.
This is your hour. So talk with the tour guide. Tell them what you're passionate about, what you're interested in studying or doing for an extracurricular, because then they'll be able to make the tour more fitted towards you specifically.
As an international student, I find it useful to ask questions about where I'm going to be staying and the kind of community I'm going to be joining.
What is it like to live in a Smith house? What are the rooms like? How do I get a roommate? Will I be given a roommate? How do I choose my house? I want people to feel free to connect with me on a personal level about the experiences that I've had at Smith, because I'm so passionate about each and every one of them.
Be specific with the questions that you ask and let them tell you whatever you want to know. If it's about a class, ask about what you're going to do in the class. Can you get attention from your professor? What's the ratio, student to professor ratio? Can you get help when you need it?
Sometimes the tour guide might not know everything about the department that you're interested in, and some families may just walk away after the tour, but what I suggest is definitely feel free to reach out to anyone in the admission office, and if they don't know the answer, they would be really happy to help you and reach out to the department chair or anyone else in the department of your interest.
Explore the area downtown and see what the vibe is like.
We have 4 other colleges around us, so we're a 5 college consortium, and there's so much to do and to learn, and it's your time to explore.
My advice is to make the tour your own.
I think just beyond what's your life here like, what's dorm life here like, what's social life here like, if you want to get specific and really connect with your tour guide, we're open to it. I'm open to it. I would love that.
Okay. Again, so a little bit of connectivity issues there, but I think you got the idea that the college is really the opportunity for you to get a feel for that school and take every possible advantage of it while you're there. We also advise students to build a college resume when they're applying to schools. A lot of this is already included in the applications. A common application, which you'll learn about, has an opportunity, a place for you to highlight the activities that you're in. So think about just sitting down and making a resume of some of the things that you've accomplished throughout your 4 years here that you want to highlight in your college application. Letters of recommendation, something that you're going to reach out to your teachers for in the spring. You're going to ask 2 teachers, and they should be from your junior year. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, junior year is the last year of academic work that colleges will be able to evaluate. So they want to hear from the teachers from that year about your ability to perform in the classroom. So please consider 2 teachers from your junior year to ask for a letter of recommendation. When you speak to them in the spring, try to speak to them in person. Don't send an email. Don't leave a note on the desk. See them face to face. If you're having trouble connecting with them, send them an email asking, hey, do you have a minute for me to touch base with you about something? And then you guys can set a time. But speak to them face to face. Be aware that the letters are confidential. They're not going to show the letter to you. They're going to give them to the counseling office, and then we're going to send them to the colleges on your behalf. But when it's all said and done, be sure to thank them. So again, I mentioned this also earlier, but how many schools should you apply to? The ideal number is somewhere between 5 or 7. Through doing your homework, you're going to know which school is a reach, which school is what we call a target school that you're competitive at, and which school is a safety school. So if you look at that, if you do 1 reach school, 1 safety school, and then 3 to 5 target schools, you'll be somewhere between 5 and 7 applications. Why limit it to just 5 or 7? Why not just send 30 and see what happens? Well, 1, there's a time and cost factor involved, right? Some of these applications can be $100. So, do you want to spend all that money applying to schools when you're only going to go to 1? The other thing to consider is it is easier to focus your attention to details in the essays and short answers and in interviews when you're just applying to 5 to 7 schools as opposed to a dozen. And then the other thing is, consider your cohort. When you apply to these schools and you get an acceptance, you are taking a spot from somebody else. Again, you can only go to 1 school. If you get accepted to 10 schools, you can only enroll in 1. Well, you have taken an admission spot from 9 other students. And one of those may be a student that you sit next to in class. So just something to consider as you send out your applications. This graph I just like to share with people just shows the overall increase in applications over the past 20, 25 years. Back in 2000, only 67% of the students submitted 3 or more applications. Now it's over 81%. 13% submitted 7 or more. 36% submit 7 or more nationally to colleges and universities. I will recall to you the comment I made about there's a human factor on the other end of those applications. These are people reading them, so we can only imagine the type of strain they're under with the amount of applications they're getting. So we want to make sure that we are, taking our time and are thoughtful in our applications that we send out. When should you apply? Again, I mentioned November 1st, and what we're finding is that November 1st is a big early action deadline for a lot of schools. And, And that college survey produced by NACAC, 45% of the colleges said that they receive applications through early action. So nearly half of the colleges and universities in the country has some form of early action. Their selectivity rate is pretty high. So 73% from those early action pools. So really, the idea here is if you are competitive and you want to get into a school, you want to get your application in early. Here are some financial aid resources for you to look at. Each year we host a financial aid presentation. This past year's is currently on our guidance website for you to review. But these are some links for you to look at when you're ready. Big thing to know here is it all begins with the FAFSA. FAFSA.ed.gov will be your home for all things college financial aid wise moving forward. So take some time between now and October 1st to familiarize yourself with these sites. I say October 1st because that is the date in which the FAFSA becomes open to the class of 2021. The class of 2022. And you want to have some familiarity with what they're looking for when you're navigating those sites next year. These are some books that I'd like to share with you that I think are worthwhile for you to read. The Enlightened College Applicant is a quick read for students and parents, but kind of gives you some more insight into the admissions office. Talks about the sticker price versus actual paid price. Where you go is not who you'll be. Will kind of really put into perspective the type of school that you get into is not the type of person that you are. You're really looking for fit and not the name. Is college worth it? The book in the middle there. Short answer is yes, but it does talk about the type of debt that you could incur by going to some of these big name schools, in which it may not be beneficial to do so. Maybe there may be colleges that are a little bit more budget friendly that will accomplish your same post-secondary goals. And I'd like to leave you with this quote: college is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. This was said by Frank Sachs, former president of the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. I really believe in this. Don't chase the name. Don't chase that big name so that you can say to your friends, to your family members, to your colleagues or whatever that I'm going to this school or my son or daughter is going to that school. You want to find a school that meets your needs. You want to find a college or university that matches you perfectly, that has everything that you're looking for, and that prepares you for life after college. And if you can do that, then you've done a good job in your college search process. So again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in and listening to this presentation. If there is any questions or any points of clarification that you need, please feel free to shoot me an email or contact your school counselor. But again, wish everybody here the best of luck in the college search process. Counselors are here to help you through this process. And if you have not scheduled that junior conference, do so immediately. Thank you.